Hey everybody, welcome to Out the First. It is June the 24th, 2024. I'm Ryan Balaji. Thanks for being here. Got plenty to talk about today. Feel like I've named the show Two Off the First after the idea of having, two main topics today, but we have so many little things to talk about, from the Travelers Championship, from a little bit about LIV Golf Nashville, a little bit of statistical analysis. We got a little bit of everything here for you on the show today. So it's thanks to many of you for being here live, whether you're watching this on a video stream or you catch us after the fact on a podcast platform of your choice. So let's get into the main event of the weekend, which was the Travelers Championship. Scottie Scheffler wins for the sixth time this year, and he does it in a playoff over Tom Kim. They finished regulation at 22 under 258 on a very strange set of circumstances, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But let's kind of dig into the Scheffler numbers of what it means to have won for a sixth time this year. If you look at all of his wins this year, I mean, he's won something like $27 million this year, insane amount of money. Look at the tournaments that he's won. You've won Bay Hill, you've won the Players, you won the Masters, RBC, Memorial, and now this one, Travelers. All those are big money events with at least $3.6 million to the winner. In many cases, $4 million to the winner, $4.5 million to the Players. Just a bonkers amount of money. He's won about 59% of the available money he could have won this year had he won every event. That is staggering for a guy with 6 wins and a guy that's playing a regular PGA Tour schedule. That's mind-boggling to me. And then you take a look at comparing what he has done in these 6 wins to anybody else, either in the last 42 years, looking at kind of the PGA Tour's main statistical history goes back to 1983. But even if you go back more than that and you look at what he has done compared to Arnold Palmer being the first guy since Palmer in 62 to have won 6 PGA Tour events before the calendar turned to July. That there is kind of bonkers, right? You would have thought Tiger would probably get there at one of these many years in which he won 6 or more times in a year, and he never did. He never got there before July. And if you look at his season, a lot of his stuff tended to happen on the back end of things. And interestingly enough, a lot of people have thought about Scheffler as an early part of the year winner, right? Like, oh, he won after April. That's a big deal. Or after the Masters. That's a big deal. Well, all of a sudden he's won 6 times, and half of those, a couple of those are after the month of April, and then 3 of them are after the Masters tournament. So he is becoming a prolific champion. And yet at the same time, he is getting dragged for this, which I find a very bizarre set of kind of bizarre reasoning that's happening right now. And I feel like we've reached kind of peak bifurcation in terms of professional golf, because Scottie Scheffler wins this tournament, and you knew when he took the lead he was going to win the tournament, right? You knew, right? He's kind of like Tiger in that regard. As soon as he reaches the lead, everyone craps their pants and goes, "Oh, here we go again." And credit to Tom Kim for not absolutely folding, and he got a bad lie in the bunker in the playoff, which we'll talk about, but you knew Scheffler was going to win. He is like Tiger in that regard. Reaches the lead, he's not going to mess it up. He's got a game plan. The whole thing's decided. But I saw an interesting tweet from a guy named Matt Vicenzi, who writes about golf for Golf WRX, and he tried to make a kind of interesting ipso facto of saying, Scottie won this tournament by being 9th, is what he said. He was actually 6th in strokes gained approach for the week, and kind of treated that as though he stunk. By finishing 6th in approach instead of being 1st in approach, which that's not how statistics work. That's not how tournaments work. That's not how it's ever worked. But then going to say, okay, well, because Scottie finished 9th, but really 6th in strokes gained approach, I'm going to talk about LIV Golf because Scottie Scheffler's not playing guys like Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau and Brooks Koepka and Cam Smith and Tyrrell Hatton, who won by a half dozen. He's not playing those guys. And there are, he said, 2 of the four most talented players in the world are on LIV, and there are 15 very good players on LIV. And if you know my view about LIV, I feel it's like a 10-person tour. It's not a 20-person tour. I'm not saying those guys aren't good or they aren't capable professional golfers. They're just not quite up to the same level of maybe the top 25 in the world. And that's a difference on the margins. But this idea that Scottie Scheffler's wins mean less because he's not beating Rahm and DeChambeau primarily, I can understand what you're saying. I can understand that you're saying there's a diminished meaning to them ever so slightly. But this is also precisely what happened in the Tiger era. And again, I'm not telling you Scottie Scheffler is Tiger Woods, but in the Tiger era, there was always this discussion after a while of like, all right, Tiger's the best. Where is it? Who was going to challenge this guy? And then every single year it was a new made up guy, and some were recycled, and sometimes there were like 3 or 4 of them. Like, who's going to track down Tiger this year? There used to be like a big 5. It was like Retief Goosen, Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson, David Duval, and then Tiger. It was like none of those guys combined are even close to Tiger. And they kept searching for him. They kept trying to find this narrative of like, who's the guy that's going to track down Tiger? There never was one. There never was one. And if you talk to like Ernie Els or Phil Mickelson or to a lesser extent Duval, I mean, VJ for sure, guys that had incredible careers, even in the shadow of Tiger Woods' brilliance, they would all tell you they would have won a million more times if Tiger didn't play. And they were probably right because they had 82 wins to disseminate equally, right, among them. And not just those guys, but, you know, in the current generation. And yet you're trying to look for like who's the guy to challenge Scottie Scheffler. And unfortunately, right now, that best available guy is either Rory McIlroy or Bryson DeChambeau. And Rory's the only guy to have won a signature event other than Scheffler after the first 3. And that's the one Scottie didn't play so he could go be a father. We talk about what Bryson has accomplished this year. Winning the U.S. Open was a tremendous achievement. And he's had an incredible year. I'm not going to take away anything for what he has accomplished on the golf course. But then you're trying to make a comparison between the years those two guys had so far. You know, Scheffler's won 6 times. Bryson has played 12 total. And that's because he's got 9 live events that are in the books. Didn't have any of them. And he's got 3 major championships that he's played. He won 1 of them. So if you're looking for kind of a direct comparison, okay, Bryson may be the best available foil, but Rory has put up good numbers. Colin Morikawa's put up good numbers. You've had Xander win a major championship, be a top 10 machine. I understand the PGA Tour is missing live guys. But then to all of a sudden say, okay, diminish Scottie's wins by as much as I feel like diminishing them because Bryson and Rahm weren't there. And then those are really the only guys that I think particularly matter to this discussion. Then I guess. But like Tiger didn't always win against the best players. It was a little bit more of a distributed tour back then. I mean, think before the signature era or the elevated era, or the designated era, whatever the heck we're calling it. Think before that, and you would have looked at a schedule and you go, all right, well, this is the Tiger Tour. These are the Tiger events that Tiger plays. These are the ones he kicks ass in. He destroyed Firestone. I mean, just absolutely owned it. Bay Hill owned the place. Torrey owned the place. If you look at a lot of Tiger Woods' wins, and again, not diminishing anything Tiger accomplished, a lot of them happened in the same places. About a third of them happened in, 4 or 5 places? That's not, I mean, maybe even more than a third of them. That's not a knock on Tiger Woods. He just loved those golf courses and kicked ass on them, made sure to play them every year, won, and it didn't matter whether he was playing against an A-plus field, A-minus field, B-plus field. He was the attraction. You had to beat him. That's where we are now with Scheffler, who's at a dozen PGA Tour wins, dozen, 14, whatever the number is he's at this point. But that number of wins is going to start to develop people who push back on your accomplishment, where they go, all right, well, if he wins so much, how hard is it? I mean, he can't be that hard if he's beating everybody all the time. And I don't think that that's it. I mean, just winning in golf is extremely difficult. And I think if one day this all happens to work out and we get something that looks like the way golf was competitively before LIV back together, I still think Scottie Scheffler is going to kick everyone's ass. It's just you're going to have extra guys' asses to kick, or different guys' asses to kick, I suppose. But that doesn't change what Scheffler has accomplished, especially if you're trying to look at it from a strokes gain perspective. Strokes gain has nothing to do in terms of the statistical breakdown with your opponent. You're not playing an opponent. You're playing the golf course. So if you gain on the golf course, you're going to gain on your opponent, most likely. Those two things are incompatible. They are not an argument. They do not make sense. So if you're going to try to make that argument, Come at it with a better way. Just say simply, look, LIV Golf has some very good players on it, has some compelling players. They're not playing on the PGA Tour right now. But of the ones that are playing on LIV, the single one so far in the 3 events we've had them all together that has really meant a darn thing is Bryson DeChambeau. Now, Brooks has been very good in 2 of them, but not great in 3 of them. And that you can make the argument about him. Rahm didn't play the U.S. Open, but otherwise has had a pretty forgettable year in the major championships. You can go with that. That's fine too. But I don't see the point of dragging down Scheffler's accomplishments just because a couple of those guys aren't around. There's no guarantee that they would be better, win more often, or anything like that. Because if you're going to try to then make the corollary argument that you're playing a 54-hole event on LIV, whatever, but you're playing against a generally weaker field, right? I mean, LIV's a 10 to 15 person tour. I'm still saying 10, but I'll give you 15. Even then, 40 players are just there to be there. They're playing for second place or worse. They're not playing to win, or they're playing for the team component. All right, well, why are you not dragging Gooch or Brooks or Dustin Johnson, the guys who have been the most prolific winners on LIV? They didn't. If you're saying they didn't beat anybody, okay, then say that. I don't get that, but we have reached peak backlash on Scottie, I think, to the point where like, well, maybe he's not that good. Maybe he's just beat nobody. Maybe he actually stinks. Maybe Scottie Scheffler actually stinks. Like that. It's almost like there's an old not New Kids on the Block. There's an old sketch comedy group out in Canada. There's old sketch about like never put salt in your eye, never put salt in your eye, always put salt in your eye. Like talk yourself into doing something stupid, saying something stupid. That's kind of where this is at. That's what I think about. So congrats to Scottie for winning. Let's talk about the protesters real quick. So protesters from a group called Extinction Rebellion. It's apparently some kind of worldwide group, but this is the New York chapter. That's a weird way of saying that, but a New York chapter of this group. That 6 of them kind of walk out onto the putting surface on the 72nd hole. Scheffler and Tom Kim and Akshay Bhatia are getting ready to hit their putts and try to close out this golf tournament. And they've got like what looks to be like dry paint that they've got in bags, and they're just throwing out like different colors and red and white, and I think there was like a gold. And all of these people get apprehended immediately. Kudos to the law enforcement folks and the security staff at the Travelers Championship for being like, not today. And all of a sudden apprehending these folks. One definitely got absolutely leveled and probably made a body dent on the green. Good form tackle there. And then they're hauled off. And I think this was footage David Dusek from Golf Week shot, but I've seen it distributed out to this point. I'm not exactly sure anymore. But if you get a chance to watch it, please do. There's this notion of, or this video of one of the guys getting called off by the police. Like, you know, he's already arrested, hands behind his back. And he there's like a random like rose planter. And the guy just like kicks in and like smiling on his way, almost like it was like Stone Cold Steve Austin getting arrested. Sorry for the wrestling comp, but it was pretty funny. And you know, there are people booing him and cussing at him, and so you're like, okay, now what? It's almost like the Volkswagen scene from Happy Gilmore. Like, do we finish this? Do we play again tomorrow? Because they have to play to the whole location that they originally played. So Bhatia gets to move his line because it would have gone through the I assume dry paint, whatever the heck it was. So he putts. He's not really a factor. He gets out of the way. Scheffler winds up putting. He misses by 5-6 inches, if that, for a birdie that would have won it. And then you have Tom Kim, who nearly jars his second shot. It spins back to 9-10 feet, winds up making that putt, and he forces the playoff, which was awesome. That was exactly what you would have hoped for Tom Kim and Scottie Scheffler, great buddies. Have that extra hole. Then they move the hole 8 paces so that it's not in the way, presumably not in the way of the dent and the paint, the body dent, and all that paint stuff. And then Tom Kim puts it in the front bunker. It plugs. He just didn't have enough club. He needed to step on it. And Paul Tesori basically told him step on it. He just didn't step on it enough. Scottie hits the green, 12 feet, 2 putts. This thing's over. And Scottie Scheffler's a 6-time winner. The climate protesters thing, I mean, I think most of you know if you watch this, I am I'm a Democrat, kind of more middle of the road on a lot of things, but I am a social issues guy. And yet at the same time, I kept thinking, this is not how this happens. This is not what you do. Like similar, like the Just Stop Oil group, they're like similar tactics, like defacing, like Stonehenge, and trying to kill like a species that lives on the rocks, that's like protected environmentally and endangered, and like trying to besmirch like putting or paintings in the Louvre and stuff. I don't understand that. And I'll leave that social commentary to someone else because this is a golf show. But it felt like you weren't winning the argument here if everyone in the arena is booing you as you're doing it. And I understand you want to call attention to these issues, and that's totally reasonable to do. But then to send out a press release like 10 minutes later, like, hey, it was us. We did it. Look at us. And you're like, oh, come on, man. Like, there, the last thing I'll say about politics, I don't care what your politics are, whether you're left, right, center. No matter what team you're on, politically speaking, there are people on your team that are incredibly embarrassing. And unfortunately, they're on your team, whether you like it or not. And reckoning with that is really not fun for anybody. So if we can just kind of get all those people off the teams and put them on their own crappy team, we'd be a lot better off as a society. All right, second topic. Let's talk about Amy Yang briefly. So she is the winner of the Women's PGA Championship. She won at Sahalee. She's been on the LPGA Tour more than half of her life, well, about half her life, 17 years. This is her 75th major championship start, and she finally gets her major. And I've really enjoyed watching Amy Yang play golf over the years. She has won some big tournaments. She's won the CME. She's won and contended in lots of majors, won on the LPGA a bunch of different times, but never gotten through in that major. And she's been close recently. I mean, even the last couple of years, giving herself a good shot to win and just not sealed the deal. To get it done was really, really cool to watch. I know it's not going to be like a ratings draw or a big money thing, and that's okay. And this is kind of one of the, like when Angela Stanford won her major, which I loved seeing her win that major. You know, having those opportunities for players who have been so great for so long and just maybe just not gotten over that threshold to be a major winner is really exciting, especially for someone like I kind of view the world like my life has been a long grind. You're trying to just build up slowly and slowly, and one day you're going to get over that threshold, and then everything, it was all worth it. And I saw that kind of wave come over Amy Yang as her friends and so many of her colleagues were out there, you know, opening bottles of champagne, pouring it on her head, pouring it down her shirt, just making sure that they know that she knows how much she's loved and respected and appreciated. Those are cool moments, man. I love those in golf. I love when those kinds of things happen. So congrats to Amy Yang on winning. Lily Avu had a good week. I feel very bad for Allie Ewing. She wound up coming like 0.12 average points shy in the Olympic world ranking of making Team USA. I think she finished in the top 5 for the week. It was a great week for her. She's a really good player. That's got to be a heartbreaker to miss out representing the United States, especially one of the countries where you can get the maximum allotment of players into the 60-player women's Olympic field to come up just short. That's a heartbreaker, but a great week for her as well. I love Sahalee. It is such a cool change up. I wish the Pacific Northwest got more opportunities to host major championships. Sahalee is like the total opposite of Chambers Bay. Big trees, very claustrophobic looking, at least off the tees, but a lot more open than it seems once you get out into the fairways and greens. That's still not very wide open, but more open. And then you have, Chambers out there, and I wish they could find a venue that could have the course architecture to be interesting to kind of get the attention in the first place, and then the infrastructure and the land to be able to make it possible. Pacific Northwest is great for golf, and I would love to see more places like that Sahalee get a major championship. So hopefully that's into the future, but also at the same time, we're at the point where we've got majors decided, like US Open's decided until like 2051 at this point, except for like 3 of them. Not so much true on the women's major side. It's more into like some of the 2030s, some of the 2040s in some cases. I just wish that there were more places that could have a major championship. And to that end, I do want to talk about something here before we talk about Jon Rahm complaining about drones. And that is, I think we are now enough into this process of having signature events or elevated events, designated events, that going into next year or going into future years, because they've probably pretty much made up their mind for next year, I would love to see the signature events, at least half of them, move around. And I don't necessarily mean move around from like permanent event on the PGA Tour to permanent event. Like Travelers, Heritage, which I mean, they don't know if they're signature events next year. But Travelers, Heritage, Wells Fargo is about to undergo some changes. You've got those tournaments, and you're going to keep Century, you're going to keep Genesis and Bay Hill Memorial. Those are sticking around. They're not going anywhere as signature events. So you've got maybe 3, maybe 4 that you can consider moving around. What I would like to see the PGA Tour do is turn those events into ones that move around like majors. Go every year to 3 different cities, find a cool course for a 1-week event, $20 million tournament, have a series sponsor or whatever. They've got a great sales team. They can do this. They're capable people. And go to markets where the PGA Tour just isn't there permanently. I'm saying this partially selfishly because I'd love to see the Baltimore, D.C. area get one. There is no permanent event in New York or Boston or Chicago, or think about parts of, there's probably parts of Texas. There are different markets where go up Pacific Northwest. There are different parts of the country where there's simply not PGA Tour representation for whatever reason. And if you could bring and shop that around first of all, you could bid it out, probably make a boatload of money on PGA Tour Enterprises. But 2, you could go and say, hey, we're going to come to Baltimore, DC in 2027 for the whatever championship. What we rename it, I don't care. But fans would show up like crazy for that stuff. Golf fans would. And I think it would be a great opportunity to create the kind of atmosphere that Travelers has and will always have, because it is an institution. And that tournament has worked so hard to build that atmosphere. And they've done a great, great job in doing it. They don't need to be a signature event. They want to be fine, but they don't need to be. Players like the event because the tournament takes care of the players. Fans love it. And I know people are dragging the golf course because it's too easy, and that's fine. You can have an easy golf course on the schedule. But that event's going to be great on its own. Phoenix is great on its own. Create signature events, shop them around, bring golf to the masses where you don't already have it. Think it would be a huge winner. All right, let's wrap everything up today on the show. Thank you for watching or listening. Well, I'm not going to show you the video, but Jon Rahm is playing on LIV. I think this is the final round in Nashville. I did not catch this moment live. I've only seen it on X after the fact. But Rahm's getting ready to hit tee shot at the Grove, which seemed to have a great crowd. It was a good host, I think. Again, Nashville's another one of those markets where people are golf crazy, man. Like, get in there and bring people to come watch the best players in the world. LIV did it. PGA Tour can do it. Shop it around. But Rahm's getting ready to hit a tee shot. There's water all up the left. Duck hooks the tee shot, goes straight in the water, and he immediately turns and looks up. And he turns and looks up at the drone that's flying, I don't know, whatever number of yards above and behind him, and just goes off on a rant. Like, every effing week with these effing drones, always effing moving when I'm in my backswing, just complaining about the drones. And Robert McIntyre complained about it at the Canadian Open. I'm not saying this is a unique phenomenon to LIV, but just kind of the way he went off about it. And then the natural reaction is, oh, well, this is another indication that Rahm hates being on LIV. It's terrible. He hates it all. I don't think that's true. He's just really frustrated. But there's this kind of push and pull right now happening in golf coverage of we want to make golf on TV a cooler experience if more people watch it, especially younger people. And executives have come up with this idea of drones, which we've thrown out there for years. They took us up on it. They're like, hey, these are great. But now you've got people flying drones so close to players that they can hear them. Which, if you go to any golf tournament in person now, you will hear a drone humming, I guarantee you, at least twice while you're there that day. And you'll hear it like you feel like it's next to your head. They're just loud. They're loud commercial drones. They're not quiet. So there's going to be this push and pull between players and television of hey, we want to show people the best angle possible. But yeah, that drone right in the middle of your backswing, if you feel like it's going to chop your arm off with the blades, circling around 1,000 miles per hour and the noise, it's going to bother you. So I don't know what's going to happen there. I do feel like there'll be some eventual pushback on all this stuff, but the drone shots are also really cool. So maybe if someone who's affiliated with pickleball, who's trying to eliminate the noise of in pickleball, maybe they can get together with the drone people and they can come up with noise canceling stuff for both things. that would be great. Make everyone happier. I think everyone in golf would be happier because everyone in my club doesn't like hearing the of pickleball. They might like playing it, but they don't like the noise. And people who like to watch golf don't like hearing the buzz of the drone. So if we can solve both of those problems, we can have peace in our time. All right, that's going to do it for us today on the show. Thanks so much for watching or listening. We're going to try to do the show. I think I've kind of settled on 1 p.m. Eastern as the live time for these shows. 1 p.m.-ish. Not going to be perfectly 1 p.m. every day, but 1 p.m. I think is good. It's good for Eastern time zone, 6 o'clock over in GMT. Well, it's 5 o'clock right now. And then you've got the Pacific time zone that's still like mid-morning, 10 a.m. That's not bad. So I think that's kind of our sweet spot. We're going to try 1 p.m. Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. And then Thursdays and Fridays, just watch the golf. Please don't even attempt to watch me. If you listen to this show as a podcast after the fact, please leave us a 5-star review. Leave a comment. Helps us reach more people. If you're watching live, and you can't always catch us live, subscribe as a podcast listener. You get to catch the whole show. And leave me an email, Ryan@thegolfnewsnet.com. Twitter, Threads, X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. You can find me at Ryan Ballingy. Facebook and YouTube, Ryan Ballingy Golf. And then on every social media service, our handle is Golf News Net. Thank you so much for watching or listening, spending some time with me, talking golf. We'll be back tomorrow with another show. Catch you next time on 2 Off the First.